I was just looking for my keys in my wife's bag when I found something that shattered my world. One small check and everything I believed in was a lie. This is a story of betrayal, secrets, and retribution that changed my life forever. Are you ready to find out the truth? The day my world started unraveling, I wasn't looking for trouble. I was just trying to be helpful. My wife, Emily, was running late for work, as usual, her heels clicking frantically across the hardwood floor of our Tacoma home. She stood in front of the bathroom mirror, pinning her chestnut hair into a neat updo, her voice carrying that familiar mix of stress and charm. "Jake, can you grab my keys? They're in my purse," she called out, her tone half pleading, half distracted. I sighed, setting down my coffee mug on the kitchen counter. The purse sat on the dining table, a black leather tote that screamed organized chaos. I'd rummaged through it 100 times before: keys, wallet, lip gloss, maybe a stray receipt or two. No big deal. But that morning, as my hand sifted through the jumble of her everyday essentials, my fingers brushed against something different. Tucked deep inside a side pocket, almost hidden, was a single folded piece of paper. It felt deliberate, like it had been placed there with care. I don't know why I unfolded it. Curiosity, maybe. Or some instinct I didn't even know I had. The moment I did, the air in the room seemed to thicken. The logo at the top read the Emerald Lodge, Seattle, in elegant gold script. Below it, in smaller print, March 12, 2025. My stomach twisted. That was 2 weeks ago, a Thursday night. The same Thursday Emily had called me at 6 p.m., her voice apologetic but casual, saying she was stuck at the office working on a big marketing pitch. I'd made myself a sandwich, watched a couple episodes of The Office on rerun, and gone to bed early. She'd slipped in sometime after midnight, kissing my forehead so softly I barely stirred. "Didn't want to wake you," she'd whispered. But this receipt told a different story. The timestamp glared at me. 7:45 p.m. exactly when she'd texted me, "Still grinding? Don't wait up." The items listed below made my head spin. Chateau Lafayette Rothschild 2016 for $125. Truffle assortment, $75. Silk lingerie set, midnight blue, $520. Romantic gift wrapping, $20. At the bottom, in loopy handwriting, "For the lovebirds, come back soon," with a little red heart. I stood frozen in our kitchen, the hum of the fridge suddenly deafening. We lived in Tacoma, a solid hour from Seattle. We talked about going there for a weekend, maybe hitting a brewery or catching a show, but we never had. Not once. And definitely not on a random Thursday. Emily wasn't the type to splurge like this, either. We were craft beer and takeout people, not $400 wine people. Our sheets were from Costco, not some boutique. The most extravagant thing I'd ever bought her was a $30 candle, and she laughed, calling me fancy for it. My mind raced, trying to stitch together an explanation. Was this a surprise for me? Our anniversary wasn't until October, and it was only March. Maybe it was a client gift? But Emily worked in mid-level PR, not the kind of job where you drop $1,000 on romantic packages. And that handwritten note, "Lovebirds," it clawed at me. Who was she with in Seattle? Why had she lied? I folded the receipt exactly as I'd found it and slipped it back into the pocket. My hands felt unsteady, like I'd just touched something dangerous. When Emily rushed downstairs, her earrings glinting and her perfume trailing behind her, I handed her the keys without a word. "You're a lifesaver," she said, flashing that bright smile that used to make my chest warm. She pecked my cheek and hurried out the door, her voice floating back. "Love you." For the first time in our 7 years together, those words felt hollow. I stood in the doorway, watching her silver Honda CR-V disappear down the street, and a cold weight settled in my chest. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was something worse, the sinking realization that I might not know my wife at all. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling while Emily showered. The sound of running water mixed with the faint scent of her lavender body wash, a smell that used to mean home. Now it just made me wonder who else had noticed it lately. She slid under the covers, her skin warm against mine, and murmured, "Good night, babe." I pretended to be asleep, but my mind was a storm. The receipt played on a loop in my head, dates, dollar amounts, that damn heart. I wanted to shake her awake, shove the paper in her face, and demand answers. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I started watching her. Not in a creepy way, but in a way I hadn't before. Emily had always been a puzzle I thought I'd solved. Smart, ambitious, a little messy, but mine. Now, every move she made felt like a clue. Her phone, once left carelessly on the counter, was now glued to her hand or tucked in her pocket, screen locked. She'd flinch when it buzzed, glance at it quickly, then flip it over like it was nothing. She started mentioning girls' nights, with names I didn't recognize: Claire, Megan, people she'd never brought up before. Last week, she came home at 1 a.m., her lipstick fresh and her hair too perfect, like she'd fixed it in a car mirror. "Just drinks with the girls," she'd said, yawning. I nodded, but the knot in my gut tightened. Then there was the sagging. I found it under the passenger seat of her car while looking for my missing sunglasses. A single silver earring, delicate, with a tiny emerald stone. Emily only wore gold hoops or studs, nothing like this. When I held it up and asked, "This yours?" her face froze for a split second before she laughed it off. "Oh, probably Claire's. She was in my car last week. I didn't buy it, but I let it go. I wasn't ready to tip my hand." By the end of the week, I was keeping a mental log. Dates, times, excuses. Every lie was a thread, and I was starting to see the pattern they wove. I didn't want to believe Emily was cheating. I loved her, God, I loved her, but love doesn't make you blind forever. The receipt wasn't a mistake. It was a door, and I was already stepping through it, whether I wanted to or not. The receipt was a splinter under my skin, impossible to ignore. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it. The cursive Emerald Lodge logo, the $520 lingerie, that handwritten lovebirds with its smug little heart. I tucked it back into Emily's purse, but its weight followed me everywhere. I wasn't ready to confront her, not yet. I needed more than a piece of paper to unravel the life I thought we had. So I did something I never imagined I'd do. I started watching my wife like she was a stranger. It wasn't hard to spot the changes once I started looking. Emily had always been a whirlwind, charming, a little chaotic, the kind of person who could talk her way into or out of anything. But now, her chaos felt calculated. Her phone, once tossed carelessly on the kitchen counter while we chopped vegetables for dinner, was now a guarded secret. She kept it face down, always within reach, the screen locked with a passcode I didn't know. When it buzzed, her eyes would dart to it, a quick glance to see who it was, then a casual flip to hide the notification. "Just work," she'd say, her smile too tight, before changing the subject. Her excuses multiplied. Girls' night became a weekly ritual, always with vague details. "Oh, just catching up with Claire and Megan," she'd say, tossing out names I couldn't place. I'd nod, pretending I bought it, but I'd never met these women. Once, she came home at 2 a.m., her lipstick freshly applied, her hair smooth like she'd just checked it in a mirror. "We got carried away at the bar," she said, kicking off her heels and yawning theatrically. I noticed her blouse was buttoned one hole off, a tiny mistake she'd never make in public. I didn't call it out. Instead, I added it to the mental ledger I'd started keeping: dates, times, lies. The sagging incident still gnawed at me. That silver earring with the emerald stone, found under the passenger seat of her Honda CR-V, it wasn't hers. Emily stuck to simple gold jewelry, nothing flashy. When I'd asked about it, her flustered excuse about Claire leaving it felt like a line she hadn't rehearsed. I kept the earring, stashing it in an old Altoids tin in my toolbox at the garage. I didn't know why. Maybe I needed something tangible, proof that I wasn't imagining things. Our Tacoma home, once a refuge, started feeling like a stage. Emily played her part well, kissing me goodbye each morning, asking about my day over dinner, saying "I love you" before bed. But there were cracks in the performance. She'd laughed too quickly at her phone, a private kind of joy I hadn't seen in months. Once, during dinner, a text came through, and she excused herself to the bathroom for 15 minutes. When she returned, her cheeks were flushed, her eyes dodging mine. "Just a work thing," she muttered, stabbing her fork into her pasta. I nodded, but the air between us felt heavy, like a storm waiting to break. I started testing her, small probes to see how she'd react. "Hey, how's Claire doing?" I asked one evening, casual as I could manage. Emily froze mid-sip of her wine, her eyes flickering with something panic, maybe, before she recovered. "Oh, she's good. Busy with her new job." She changed the topic to a client meeting, but I caught the hesitation. Claire, whoever she was, hadn't been mentioned in weeks. Another thread for my ledger. The worst moments came at night. Emily would sleep beside me, her breathing soft and steady, while I lay awake, replaying every detail. Her lavender-scented skin, once a comfort, now felt like a lie. Who else had been close enough to smell it? I'd stare at the ceiling, the receipt's numbers burned into my mind. For $125 wine, $75 truffles. Who was she buying these things for? And why Seattle, a city we'd never visited together? The questions stacked up, each one sharper than the last. I wasn't just hurt. I was unraveling. 7 years of marriage, countless memories, our first apartment with its leaky faucet, the road trip to Yellowstone where we got stuck in a snowstorm, the way she'd tease me for overcooking pancakes. Were they all a lie? I wanted to believe there was an explanation, that I was paranoid, that Emily was still the woman I'd vowed to love forever. But hope was a fragile thing, and mine was cracking. One afternoon, I found something else. Emily was in the shower, her phone charging on the nightstand, a rare moment of carelessness. I didn't touch it. I wasn't ready to cross that line. But next to it was a crumpled post-it note, half hidden under a book. I picked it up, my heart pounding. In her neat handwriting. R. 8 p.m. EL. My breath caught. EL could only mean Emerald Lodge. And R? I didn't know, but my mind conjured a face, a name, someone who wasn't me. I put the note back, my hand shaking, and left the room before she could catch me. That was the moment I knew I couldn't just watch anymore. I needed answers, not guesses. I called Mike, an old high school buddy who'd joined the Tacoma PD and moonlighted as a private investigator. He was the kind of guy who could read a room in 3 seconds flat. When I told him about the receipt, he didn't sugarcoat it. Sounds bad, Jake. But you need proof before you blow up your life. Let's get you facts. Mike agreed to help, no questions asked. She's got a work event this Friday, I told him, my voice low even though I was alone in my truck. Says it's a team happy hour. Mike grunted. We'll see about that. Meet me at 6 p.m., 2 blocks from your place. Bring coffee. As Friday approached, I felt like I was living in 2 worlds, the one where I was still Emily's husband, making her coffee with a splash of almond milk, and the one where I was a detective in my own marriage, piecing together a betrayal. When she left that evening, her navy trench coat cinched tight and a smile that didn't reach her eyes, I kissed her cheek and said, "Have fun." She didn't notice my hands were clenched in my pockets. 5 minutes later, I was in Mike's beat-up Ford Ranger, parked in the shadows. Emily's CRV pulled out of our driveway, and we followed, keeping our distance. My heart hammered as her taillights wove through Tacoma's quiet streets. I didn't know where we were going, but I had a sick feeling it wasn't a bar. When her car turned onto the highway toward Seattle, the receipt's logo flashed in my mind. Emerald Lodge. This was it, the moment I'd either get answers or lose everything. The highway to Seattle stretched out like a taut wire, each mile pulling me closer to a truth I wasn't sure I could stomach. Mike's Ford Ranger rumbled along, 2 cars behind Emily's silver CRV, its taillights a beacon in the dusk. My hands gripped the paper coffee cup in my lap, the liquid long gone cold. Mike didn't say much, just kept his eyes on the road, his jaw set like he'd seen this story play out a dozen times before. You okay? He asked once, glancing my way. I nodded, but my chest felt like it was caving in. I wasn't okay. I was chasing my wife to find out who she'd become. Emily didn't head to the downtown bar she'd mentioned for her team happy hour. Instead, her car veered off the I-5, winding toward a quieter part of Seattle, where upscale hotels and vineyards tucked themselves between rolling hills. When she pulled into the parking lot of the Emerald Lodge, the same place from the receipt, I felt a jolt, like I'd been punched. The hotel glowed softly, its glass facade reflecting the last streaks of sunset. It was the kind of place you went to disappear, not to network over cheap wine and small talk. Mike parked across the street in a shadowed turnout, killing the engine. Stay low, he muttered, adjusting his camera's zoom lens. I sank into the seat, my eyes locked on Emily's car. At 7:52 p.m., she stepped out, her navy trench coat cinched tight, her heels clicking on the pavement. She carried the Louis Vuitton overnight bag I'd given her for our 5th anniversary, a gift that had taken me months to save for. She paused by her car, checking her reflection in the side mirror, adjusting a strand of hair with a confidence that felt foreign. This wasn't the Emily who burned toast or laughed at my bad puns. This was someone else. A man approached from the hotel entrance, tall, maybe early 40s, in a tailored gray suit that screamed money. His face was half-shadowed, but I caught the easy way he moved, like the world bent to his will. They didn't hug or kiss, just exchanged a look, a private, knowing smile that hit me harder than any touch could have. They walked inside together, side by side, like they'd done this 100 times. Mike's camera clicked softly. Got it, he said, handing me his phone. The screen showed Emily, her face relaxed, almost radiant, as she stepped through the glass doors behind him. That smile, it was the one she used to give me, back when I thought we were forever. Who is he? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Mike didn't answer right away, just zoomed in on the photo. I'll find out, he said finally. But, Jake, this ain't looking good. I didn't need him to tell me that. The receipt, the post-it with our 8 p.m., EL, the sagging, the lies, they were all pieces of a puzzle I'd been too blind to solve. Emily wasn't just cheating. She was living a double life. We sat there for what felt like hours, the silence heavy. The sun dipped below the hills, painting the sky a bruised purple. Emily reappeared once, maybe 10 minutes later, grabbing something from her car, a small velvet box, the kind you'd use for jewelry. My stomach churned. Was it a gift for him? She didn't look around, didn't act nervous, just walked back inside with the same calm assurance. She's not hiding, Mike said, almost to himself. That's what makes it worse. He was right. This wasn't some reckless fling, fueled by impulse or guilt. It was deliberate, routine. Emily wasn't sneaking around. She was stepping into a life she preferred, one that didn't include me. The realization cut deeper than I expected, not just because she was with someone else, but because she'd planned it so carefully. I felt like a prop in her story, a placeholder she hadn't bothered to write out yet. Mike dug deeper the next day. By noon, he had a name. Ryan Keller, 42, a real estate developer based in Seattle. Big player, Mike said over the phone. Owns half the condos downtown, sits on a couple of charity boards. Married, but separated. No kids. I listened, numb, as he rattled off details. Ryan was everything I wasn't: rich, polished, connected. The kind of guy who drank $400 wine without blinking. But it wasn't his money that stung. It was the way Emily had looked at him, like he was her future. Then came the real blow. Mike had a contact at Emily's bank, someone who owed him a favor. She's been moving money, he told me, his voice low. Opened a new account 3 months ago, Solo. Transferred $12,000 from your joint savings. Small chunks, so you wouldn't notice. I sat in my truck outside the garage, the phone pressed to my ear, my vision blurring. Our savings, money we'd scraped together for a house, maybe a kid someday, were hers now, funneled into a life I wasn't part of. There's more, Mike added. She's been searching for apartments in Seattle. 1 bedroom, high-end. Lease starts next month. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just felt empty. Like someone had scooped out my insides and left a shell. Emily wasn't just cheating, she was planning her exit, building a new life while I was still making her coffee every morning. The post-it, the velvet box, the money, it all pointed to one thing. She was done with me. She just hadn't told me yet. That night, Emily came home late, claiming her happy hour had turned into dinner with the team. She looked flushed, her eyes bright, like she'd just stepped out of a dream. Sorry I didn't text, she said, kicking off her shoes. It got crazy. I nodded, forcing a smile, but my hand shook as I handed her a glass of water. She didn't notice. She never did anymore. I couldn't keep living like this, pretending everything was fine while my marriage crumbled. But I also couldn't confront her, not yet. If I showed my hand, she'd spin a story, and I'd be left with nothing but her lies. I needed a plan, something to protect myself before her new life swallowed what was left of mine. What's next? Mike asked when I called him the next morning. You want me to keep digging? No, I said, my voice steady for the first time in days. I need a lawyer. Mike didn't argue. Smart move. I know a guy. Discreet, good with divorces. I'll set it up. As I hung up, I felt a shift inside me, not anger, not even pain, but clarity. Emily had made her choice. Now it was my turn. The truth about Emily's double life didn't break me, it sharpened me. Knowing she'd siphoned $12,000 from our savings, planned a new life in Seattle, and smiled at another man like I didn't exist lit a fire in me. Not rage, not yet, but a cold, focused determination. I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything we'd built while I was left picking up the pieces. If Emily thought she could rewrite our story without consequences, she was about to learn I wasn't the pushover she assumed. I met Mike's lawyer friend, Sarah and Gwen, in a small Tacoma coffee shop 3 days after tailing Emily to the Emerald Lodge. Sarah was sharp, no nonsense, with a knack for cutting through chaos. I laid it all out. The receipt, the post-it, the sagging, the bank transfers, Ryan Keller, the apartment lease. I showed her Mike's photo of Emily and Ryan, her smile brighter than I'd seen in years. Sarah listened, jotting notes, her expression unreadable. When I finished, she leaned back and said, You've got enough for a clean break, Jake. Washington's a no-fault state, so infidelity won't change the divorce settlement. But those bank transfers? That's where we can nail her. She explained my options. Freeze the joint accounts, file for divorce, and demand an audit of the transferred funds. If she's hiding assets, we can prove it, Sarah said. But you need to move fast, before she drains what's left. I nodded, my mind racing. This wasn't about revenge, not in the way people imagine, screaming matches or public humiliation. It was about protecting myself, reclaiming what was mine, and letting Emily face the mess she'd made. Over the next week, I played my part at home, the dutiful husband who didn't suspect a thing. I made Emily's coffee, almond milk, no sugar, kissed her goodbye each morning, and smiled when she spun her stories about late meetings or girls' nights. But behind the scenes, I was dismantling her plan. Sarah filed a motion to freeze our joint accounts, citing suspicious activity. By Friday, Emily wouldn't be able to touch what was left of our savings. I also met with a forensic accountant Sarah recommended, who traced the $12,000 to Emily's secret account. She's been sloppy, the accountant said. The transfers are all time-stamped. We can argue she acted in bad faith. Every step felt like laying a trap, but I didn't feel guilty. Emily had betrayed me first, lied to my face, stolen our future, and planned to slip away without a word. I wasn't breaking any laws. I was just evening the score. Still, living with her was torture. She'd come home late, her perfume sharp, her eyes dodging mine. Once, she left her phone on the counter for a moment, a text notification lighting up. Can't wait for tomorrow. I didn't read more. I didn't need to. The velvet box I'd seen her grab at the hotel haunted me. Was it a gift for him? A promise of their new life? I decided to leave before the divorce papers were served. Not out of cowardice, but strategy. I wanted Emily to feel the weight of my absence, to realize her carefully crafted exit had crumbled. I rented a small apartment in Olympia, an hour south, using cash from my garage job. Mike helped me move essentials, a duffel bag of clothes, my toolbox, a few books, under the cover of night. You sure about this? He asked, leaning against his truck. Once you're gone, she'll know something's up. I nodded. That's the point. The night I left, Emily was working late again. I sat at our kitchen table, the house quiet except for the hum of the fridge. I wrote her a letter, short but deliberate. Emily, I know about Seattle, Ryan, the money. I found the receipt, saw you at the Emerald Lodge. You chose a new life, so I'm choosing mine. The accounts are frozen. My lawyer will be in touch. Good luck. I left the letter on the counter, next to the sagging I'd found in her car. It wasn't petty, it was proof. She'd know I'd seen through her. I drove to Olympia in silence, the weight of 7 years lifting with every mile. By the time Emily got home, I was gone. I didn't block her number, but I didn't answer when she called. 3 times, then a flurry of texts. Jake, where are you? We need to talk. Please. I ignored them. Sarah had warned me. She'll try to spin it, make you the bad guy. Don't engage. So I didn't. The fallout came fast. Mike kept tabs through mutual contacts. Emily showed up at my garage the next day, eyes red, demanding to know where I was. My boss, a gruff guy named Hank, told her I'd taken a personal leave and shut the door in her face. She called my sister, my parents, even a high school friend I hadn't spoken to in years, spinning a story about me disappearing. But the cracks in her world were already showing. Her PR firm caught wind of her erratic behavior, missed deadlines, distracted meetings, and put her on probation. The office gossip mill, brutal as ever, churned out whispers about her mystery man. Ryan Keller, it turned out, wasn't as committed as she'd hoped. Mike heard through a contact that he'd distanced himself, spooked by her unraveling life. Guys like that don't stick around for drama, Mike said. The frozen accounts hit her hardest. Without access to our savings, or her secret stash, now flagged by the bank, Emily couldn't afford the Seattle apartment she'd planned to lease. She sold her Louis Vuitton bag online, then her designer heels. I didn't gloat, but I didn't feel sorry for her either. She'd built this house of cards, and I'd just pulled the first one. A week later, Sarah called. The divorce filing's ready. We've got a strong case for recovering your share of the savings. She's been served. I exhaled, staring out the window of my bare Olympia apartment. It wasn't joy I felt, but relief. I'd taken back control, not with fists or shouting, but with quiet, legal precision. Emily's world was collapsing, not because I'd burned it down, but because she'd built it on lies. Still, late at night, I'd lie awake, the letter I'd left her echoing in my mind. I didn't hate her, not exactly. I hated the version of her that had erased me, that had turned our marriage into a performance. Part of me wondered what she'd do next, how she'd try to claw her way out. But I wasn't her audience anymore. I was writing my own story now, and it didn't include her. 2 years after I walked away from Emily, my life looked nothing like the one I'd left behind. I'd settled in Portland, a city that felt like a fresh start with its rainy streets and unpretentious vibe. I worked as a lead mechanic at a family-owned auto shop, the kind of place where grease stains were a badge of honor and customers trusted you because you didn't bullshit them. The job grounded me: wrenches, engines, honest work. No more pretending, no more living in the shadow of someone else's lies. I'd rebuilt myself, piece by piece, and for the first time in years, I felt steady. I met Kate 6 months after moving to Portland. She rolled into the shop with a rattling Subaru, her blonde hair tied back in a messy bun, a smile that didn't demand anything. We got to talking first about her car, then about the best food trucks in town. Coffee turned into hikes, hikes into dinners, and before I knew it, Kate was the person I couldn't wait to see. She was different from Emily, quietly kind, fiercely honest, the kind of woman who'd call you out but hold your hand while doing it. We got married on a drizzly Thursday at the county courthouse, just us, 2 friends, and a vow to always tell the truth. No secrets, no hidden receipts. I thought I'd left Emily behind, buried in the wreckage of her own choices. The divorce had gone through cleanly. Sarah, my lawyer, made sure I got my share of the savings, plus half the equity from our Tacoma house, which Emily sold when she couldn't keep up with the mortgage. I heard through Mike that she'd spiraled after I left. Her PR job slipped away, replaced by a string of temp gigs. Ryan Keller, the businessman she'd pinned her future on, vanished when her life got messy. Typical, Mike said. She'd moved into a cramped 1-bedroom in a Tacoma suburb, selling off her designer clothes to make rent. I didn't check on her, didn't need to. She was a chapter I'd closed. But the past has a way of sneaking up on you. It was December 2027, and Kate's company, a small logistics firm, threw a holiday mixer at a downtown Portland hotel. I wasn't thrilled about going. Schmoozing in a room full of name tags and forced small talk wasn't my thing. But Kate insisted, saying it'd be good for me to meet her coworkers. So there I was, in a borrowed blazer, standing by a table of mini quiches and plastic wine cups, cracking jokes with Kate about who'd trip over the karaoke mic first. Then I felt it, a prickle on the back of my neck, like someone was staring. I turned, and there she was, Emily, standing near the ballroom entrance, clutching a worn coat that looked like it had seen better days. She was thinner, her cheekbones sharp in a way that spoke of stress, not diets. Her hair, once glossy and styled, was pulled into a limp ponytail. Her eyes, though, those were the same, wide and searching, but now they carried a weight I didn't recognize. Exhaustion, maybe. Regret. She froze when our gazes locked, her hand flying to her mouth. For a split second, I thought she might turn and leave, pretend she hadn't seen me. But her face crumpled, tears welling up, and she just stood there, stranded in the doorway. Kate's hand brushed my arm. "You okay?" she asked, her voice soft. I nodded, swallowing hard. "Yeah, just someone I used to know." Emily's eyes flicked to Kate, taking in her easy posture, the simple gold band on her finger, the way we stood close without trying. I saw the moment it hit her: shock, then pain, then something like resignation. She looked like she wanted to speak, to cross the room and say something, anything. But I didn't give her the chance. I turned back to Kate, forcing a laugh about the quiches being surprisingly decent, and we moved toward the bar, away from the ghost in the doorway. I didn't look back, but I felt Emily's stare linger, heavy and unspoken. Kate didn't ask questions. She knew my past, the broad strokes of Emily's betrayal, and she trusted me to handle it. Later, as we drove home through Portland's misty streets, she squeezed my hand. "You did good back there," she said. I didn't ask what she meant. I knew. That was the last time I saw Emily. I don't know where she is now, whether she stayed in Tacoma or started over somewhere else. I don't check, don't wonder. Her life isn't my story anymore. Mike mentioned once, months later, that she tried reaching out to mutual friends, asking if anyone knew where I'd gone. No one did. I'd made sure of that, not out of spite, but because I needed a clean break. Emily had to live with the consequences of her choices, losing her job, her lover, her stability. Not because I'd punished her, but because lies have a way of catching up. Looking back, the hardest part wasn't leaving or even seeing her that night at the hotel. It was the slow, messy work of healing. Some days, I'd wake up angry, replaying every lie she'd told. Others, I'd missed the woman I thought she was, the one who danced in our kitchen to bad 80s pop. But those moments passed, and I kept moving forward. Kate, the shop, the life I'd built, they were proof I was more than the man Emily had betrayed. If there's a lesson here, it's this. When someone burns your world down, you don't owe them a front row seat to your comeback. You rebuild, quietly, on your terms. Emily's letter, the one I never answered, sits in a box in my closet, unopened since the day it arrived. I don't need to read it to know what it says: guilt, apologies, a plea for closure she'll never get. Because closure isn't something you give. It's something you take by choosing to walk away and keep going. As Kate and I sat on our porch last week, drinking coffee and watching the rain, she asked if I ever thought about back then. I shook my head. Not really, I said, and it was true. The receipt, the sagging, the nights I spent unraveling Emily's lies, they're just shadows now, faint and powerless. I'm not the man who wrote that letter anymore. I'm the one who found something better, not because I went looking, but because I let myself believe I deserved it.